Hello and welcome to this training supporting EAL pupils in early learning and childcare. My name is Jenny Gray. I'm part of the EAL team in Highland, along with my colleague Alison Roy, whose contact was on the first screen there. Okay, so the two of us cover the whole of Highland supporting EAL pupils. We do a variety of roles. We do a bit of training, we do modelling, we do assessment, and we sometimes do blocks of work with pupils as well. Okay, this is the content of today's training. Going to have this short introduction. We're then going to do a quiz to give a little bit of background information on what you know and you understand about EAL, and hopefully learn some new things about some of the theories around EAL. We're then going to look at EAL profiles and the different English levels that pupils go through as they're acquiring English. Then we're going to go do quite a big section on Teddy Talk, which is the programme we use for new to English pupils to try and build up some of their English vocabulary. We're going to look at using technology with EAL learners. So how, along with the Teddy Talk pack, there are some great resources out there that can support EAL learners' language. Quite a big emphasis on this training will be celebrating their home language. We'll talk a bit later on about why that's very important. I'm going to do some sections on communicating with parents, because obviously that's very important in a EAL in a nursery setting. And then I'm going to highlight quite a few times our website and our contacts, because all the information that we've got and we talk about today will be on our website. Okay, some practical tips, because this is a recording. As you're watching this recording, we would like you to have the slides that are alongside this recording open, because they contain some links to various bits of resources that we would like you to have a look at. And I'll ask you a few times throughout the recording to pause and go away and look at these resources and these links, and then come back when you're ready. And the great advantage of this recording is that you can do that at your own pace. You're not doing that according to other participants. You can pause and come back as many times as you like to explore the resources. A little bit of paper and a pen might be useful as well. There's a few sections in the training where we'll ask you to have a little think and to reflect on what we're talking about, and then you can jot down your ideas on a paper. Okay. Okay, first of all, what is it that you already know about EAL? I'm sure you know lots. So we've devised a little quiz there, and the link is there on this slide. So if you go into the slides, open up the link, and you will find a number of questions. Complete them, have a little think about them, and then at the end, if you click submit, you will get to view your score, and that will show you what the correct answers are. And we'd like you to have a little think about what answers surprised you. Was there anything in there that you thought, wow, I really didn't know that, or that's very interesting? Okay, so if you pause the video now and do that. Okay, hope you enjoy that. Hope that you learned something from that. The sort of the common answers that surprise people are often these ones. That it's 0 to 2 years for the social language to be developed. And that's very relevant, especially for those working in nursery, because that could actually be the whole of their nursery experience. They're developing that social language. So they're not even getting onto the next stage of the academic language. They're getting that solid social language throughout nursery. The importance of maintaining the home language. We're really hoping that this message is getting passed down now, and we especially want that to pass on to some parents, because I think sometimes there's still a misconception with some parents that they should maybe be trying to speak English at home. And we would be really pushing for the home language to be spoken at home. And there's various reasons for that. The main one is that in order for people to learn a new language, they really need a very good, solid home language to build that on. If they don't have that, they're trying to learn the two languages and they don't have that solid base in order to add it on. Also, there's the cultural importance of having a home language, and that is very important for these pupils. Another disadvantage, I suppose, can be a poor role model. So if the parents don't have very good English and they're speaking at home, that pupil is picking up mistakes and not getting a good, solid language role model, which they need to have to develop their language. And also you have a connection and the importance of connection. So if you can imagine, maybe if you have children going to another country and being expected to speak that language to your child at home, you're not going to get the social interactions, the nuances, and you're not going to develop that relationship properly. So always encouraging the parents to speak their home language at home, and English can be spoken at home in nursery. A silent period is very, very common, especially in the nursery. And I'm sure if you're working nurseries, you've seen EAL pupils that go through this. It can be up to 6 months, sometimes even longer, when they're just taking in the language, they're not saying anything. So we don't worry about that too much. But if you are concerned, if you go on our website, you will find a little checklist which lets you go through some of the other signs of communication. So are they making eye contact? Are they using their home language, for example, because that shows that they're using communication? Do they speak to their parents or their caregivers when they pick them up, etc. So there's a wee checklist there we did, but we don't worry too much about a short silent period. Okay, we're going to move on to the stages of language acquisition now. So as from the quiz, you'll know it can take up to 7 years for an EAL pupil, if they're starting at new to English, to become fluent. So these steps could take 7 years, 5 years, etc. But it can take a very long time. So new to the English is exactly as it sounds. So they may have a few words, be able to say hello, thank you, goodbye, etc. And be able to label maybe a few items in the nursery or some animals, etc. Early acquisition, okay, that can start, that's the next stage. And that's where they're starting to maybe put some of that vocabulary together in a sentence. So mum, car, my mum came in the car, etc. Building on their language and starting to put it together. Developing competence. Okay, by this stage, they're able to communicate fairly well. Okay, they've got that social language. The sentences are beginning to get longer. The vocabulary is starting to extend away from that basic core simple language to maybe some topic-based vocabulary within the nursery or from home. Competent by this stage, they're communicating very, very well, much longer sentences if that's the level they're at. You're very unlikely to get that in the nursery at this if they've come in at new to English, but they're building that confidence up. And then the final stage is fluent, and that's when a pupil is speaking English at the same level as a pupil who's got English as their first language. So as we've discovered, that can take 5 to 7 years for these steps. Okay, so in Highland, we have some tracking systems for tracking that progress through those steps. On the left there, you'll see our new primary into secondary profile. So that goes with a pupil from primary school right up into when they leave secondary school, tracks those progresses through those levels. And that would be, normally now we start these in primary one when they come into primary one. We also have, below there is an early learning and childcare version, which can be used in the nursery. It's, as you can see, looks very similar to the preschool overviews, and it just gives a little bit more detail of what the kind of language a pupil is using, because we discovered that the preschool overviews, quite often the language section, and an EAL pupil has nothing coloured in because they're not achieving any of these statements, whereas this could be slipped in alongside it and is able to track those pupils with their English acquisition. So that is available on our website as well, and can be printed off from there to use with pupils if required. Okay, we've got a short little bit of advice here. You'll also find down in the bottom right a link to our website, which has a little bit of a longer description of things that you can do, enrolment, a few weeks into the pupil being there, etc., to support them. But just these are the headlines, if you like. A little bit obvious, know the child's name and how to pronounce it. But the pronunciation is very important for the pupil and for the parent, especially with names that are maybe more unusual. Make sure that you find out how to pronounce it. Even write it phonetically on the wall to support people so that they know how to say the child's name. Find out what the child's home language is. Okay, this is important so that you can maybe learn a few words. You can use Google Translate with that pupil, and you know what language it is that they speak at home. Lovely idea to put up some signs in in that home language. Okay, we'll look at that a little bit further down through the training. So you can get some signs that you can put up that say welcome or label some of the areas. And the parents we found that very encouraging, and it's very welcoming for them as well. In the longer A4 document that we've got there, we talk about having meetings with parents and the very, very importance of using the interpreting service. Okay, we give links to that later on, and your managers will be able to support with that. If the parents have got no English or very little English, this is very valuable, so that they can ask questions and you can get some information from them. It's lovely if you can learn some basic words and phrases. Hello, goodbye, toilet, etc. Okay, makes the child feel a little bit more welcome and the parents as well. So you can put them up on the wall with them written phonetically as they sound to help you with the pronunciation if you're not sure how to pronounce them. But it's also it's very supportive for the children, and it makes them feel good. Looking for opportunities for contact with pupils who speak the same language. So if you're within a school setting, for example, is there a pupil further up the school that speaks the same language? Or is there even somebody who could volunteer, who could come and speak to that pupil? This could be used for interpreting or just to come down and maybe have a little play with those children, to give them a little bit of break from all the English. Again, it's very supportive, and gives them a little bit of confidence in coming to nursery. So as I say, if you want to have a little bit more detail, the document there down on the right-hand side has more detail about how you can support them when they first arrived through enrolment and the next few weeks and months. Okay, so sort of leading on for that, because a great part, obviously, in supporting a pupil in a nursery and early learning centre is supporting the parents as well, and that relationship with the parents. So you'll find up there's the link to the interpreter, and that a school setting will be able to book for you. The school do not pay for this service, so it's paid for centrally, so there's no concern about budget, etc. So we would strongly advise getting an interpreter for any kind of parents' nights, or we discuss in that longer document having a meeting a few months after the pupils arrived, just to talk to the parent about how they've settled, see if the parents have got any questions, and an interpreter would be valued for that. Find out from the parents at enrolment, what kind of method of communication suits them best. Okay, if they've got a low level of English, they might prefer email or text, because then they can use all sorts of translation tools to translate it, and then they can translate it back rather than face to face. So yeah, the information being shared digitally can be very useful. Though notes can also be shared with parents. There's a fantastic app called Google Lens that can translate documents through the phone, so you could use that as well. If you are doing presentations or anything for the parents, make sure there's plenty of visuals, and again, an interpreter would be quite essential for that. Okay. I'm going to show you the bilingual booklet in a minute, and the Google Translate website, so that you can use that to talk to parents if they do have a low level of English. For the last one there, just be aware of cultural differences, educational experiences. Just remember that we have a very different system to quite a lot of other countries. For example, quite a lot of countries do not have a nursery system. Pupils go straight in to primary one at this, at 5 or 6 or sometimes later. The sort of nature of the education can be very different. There might not be any play-based learning, so that will be a new experience for parents, and they might not really understand what that's about. There might be differences in parents' contribution and involvement in their education. In some cultures, the parents have no input into the education or no involvement. So just making sure that the parents are aware of the kind of things that happen and the kind of system that we have is very supportive. Okay, so if we have a look at Google Translate, so if you have got a parent that's not got very much English, Google Translate will be your friend. Okay, it can also be quite handy to speak to communicate with a pupil, maybe who's very upset, and you want to tell them their mum is coming soon, or dad will be here in an hour. You can use Google Translate. So it can be done in different ways. So you can either type, please can you bring some sharks to nursery tomorrow. Okay, so typed, and that will be translated into the language. Okay, there's a speaker function. Which is also particularly valuable for the pupils because they're not going to be able to read, so you can read that out to them to communicate something with them. There's also a speaker function so that you don't need to actually type. Your dad will be here soon, and you press stop, and it will be translated into their home language, and then they can communicate back to you if they've got something they'd like to say with the arrow there. Again, with the speaker function, or there's a little keyboard. So if it's got different symbols, okay, Arabic uses different symbols, so they can use a little keyboard to communicate back. So very valuable for, at the end of the day, what if you need to communicate something about the pupil, or as I say, if the pupil's upset, or you want to communicate a little something about what's going on or where you're going, you can use that. The speaker function for children speaking will not work. So if you try and get a little 3-year-old or 4-year-old to speak into it, unless they've got very good home language, it's probably not going to pick up on it. But for you to communicate to them, it's useful. Okay. So if we go to our website, so this is our EAL Highland website, and all the resources I talk about today, everything that I've mentioned can be found on here, just ealhighland.org.uk. And up at the top menu, you'll see we've got Early Learning and Childcare. I've got their own page. So right at the top of this, we talked earlier about the importance of speaking a home language at home. And to get that information across to parents, we have a selection of leaflets in various different languages that can be given to the parent, and all of them give the same message. Read to your child in your home language, speak to your child in your home language. That is the best way to help them to develop, and it's very important. So for example, if I'll open up the English one, see what it's like in English. Okay, so it gives information on speaking to your child, what you should do, etc. Okay, and then this side we've got a slightly different format, a slightly newer one that we've borrowed from another area. Okay, can be folded up and given to the parent. If by any chance they don't have it in their home language, because it's not got all languages, it could be given to them in English, and they could use some tools to translate it into English. Okay, so that's the bilingual. That's the communication with parents. Okay. We're going to move on now to talk about Teddy Talk. So if you don't know, Teddy Talk is our program that we have got to help pupils to learn some basic English, basic vocabulary in English, and also to help to build their confidence to use it in the nursery. Okay, we're going to get you to watch a little video in a minute. And while you're watching the video, I'd like you to have a look at these questions and maybe jot down some of the answers. So although it's a very supportive session, and it's done with an adult, not with a child, because you'll notice. But have a little think about, how did you feel as a pupil? So if you were that pupil, how would you feel? As I say, it is quite supportive, so it's not the same as you would have in a nursery in another setting, etc., where maybe people are chatting away all the time in English. It is very supportive. But how do you think they would feel? What do you think, Alison? It's my colleague Alison that does it. She's a fluent Spanish speaker. What helped you to understand? So she has lots of strategies to help you to understand what was going on. What were those? So write those down. And what strategies, did she use? And the last question is, why do you think Teddy Talk works? Okay, so this is a program that is done 2 or 3 times a week with a group of EAL pupils. And why do you think it works to help build their language and to increase their confidence? Okay, so what I'd recommend is you watch at least 2 minutes. If you've got time, watch a little bit more. I think that would be very useful. So you just click the play button there, watch as much of it as you need to, but you'll need to watch at least 2 minutes to be able to answer those questions. And then when you've done that, come back and we'll go over them. Okay, so pause the video now and go and watch that video and answer those questions. Okay. I hope you enjoy that, seeing what it's like to be a pupil when in a foreign language. Okay, so we have a look. Okay, so this is an example of a Teddy Talk session with a group of EAL learners. Okay, so hopefully some of the things that I shared here were things that you thought about and you could see in the session. Okay, so yeah, Alison used a lot of gesture and facial expressions. Okay, the face tells lots of stories. Okay, smiles, raised eyebrows. So much of communication is non-verbal, so you can really communicate extremely effectively with an EAL pupil with gesture and facial expressions. Very powerful. Not quite so evident there, but there was some pausing and waiting. Okay, so we know that a pupil that's not EAL needs a long time for you to wait before supporting them with their answer once you've asked a question. An EAL pupil needs the same, if not even more. So it's very tempting to jump in, but please just pause and wait. Give them time. They need that processing time, that thinking time to find the words or to find what they need to say. So pause and wait. Very important. Okay, this is a strategy I find works best with EAL pupils. She offered a choice. And so she paused and waited, and when the pupils still looked like they were not really sure of the answer, she narrowed it down for them. Okay, and that's because the stages of learning language, you can pick an answer from a choice. That's the first stage of picking up a new word, as Alison did. And then you're offered a choice of two, you've narrowed it down to two. And the final stage is that being able to produce that word. And that's when you know the word is secure in that pupil's mind, that they can produce it without narrowing them down. So offering a choice gives that really supportive way of them giving an answer and getting a correct answer. Okay, so is it red? Is it blue? Okay. And even when they get it wrong, I always think it's very supportive if they to say it again, but emphasize the correct answer. So they're getting that success. Okay, repetition. You'll notice the words were repeated on numerous occasions, and that's the nature of the pack. It's the nature of the program is to give lots of repetition through games, through a story, and flashcards. Okay, we're not repeating the words over and over and again, but just lots and lots of opportunities to hear that vocabulary. And she had visuals, she had real objects. So, I'll talk a little bit about how technology can support EAL learners, but there's nothing like real objects. And we know, and the research has shown, especially for pupils of this age, that real objects is the best way for them to learn new vocabulary and to learn in general, something solid to hold on to and to refer to. It will help that learning go in more. Okay, why does it work? It can pre-teach vocabulary. So if you look once a bit later on, when I let you look at the packs, you'll see we've got Christmas, we've got Easter, we've got transport. So if you know a little topic is coming up, you can give the EAL pupils a little bit of a heads up, teach them that vocabulary. So when it comes to that within the class, within the nursery setting, they've got that basis. And they've got a few bits of vocabulary to join in and to be part of. So that can be how it works. Success. So exactly as I said, you're offered a choice. They're always getting it right. There's very little opportunity in Teddy Talk for pupils to get it wrong because you can offer them another choice, etc. It's very supportive. So they get success. And for a nursery pupil, or any EAL pupil, that's very, very important because a lot of their time is spent not really achieving the same as the others, not feeling that they're getting success because they're not understanding, they don't understand the game or they don't understand the activity. So yeah, very powerful, the success aspect. It's an activity at their own language level. So not so much in the nursery, but EAL pupils, again, their whole time in the nursery, the language is above them an awful lot of the time. Okay, they're not being able to engage with it. They can't engage with some of the play with other pupils, etc. Whereas this activity is at their language level, and that can be very useful and very supportive for them. It gives them confidence to use English. Lots and lots of times when I've seen Teddy Talk being used, within 4, 5, 6 weeks, the supporters, etc., the people that are doing the Teddy Talk said, oh, they're speaking more in the group, but they're also starting to use more English in the nursery setting as well. So that silent parent can often be broken with a little set of Teddy Talk sessions because they've developed that confidence because of the support that it provides, and that confidence drips into being in the nursery too. Okay, a little bit about Teddy Talk. This is all on our website, but I'm just going to go through it if you're not aware of it. We recommend sort of 15-20 minutes each session, obviously completely depending on the attention of the pupils involved. 2 to 3 times a week is ideal, but we're also very much aware of the pressures within a nursery setting of trying to get time to do that. Quite often we would recommend if there's a story time, that is a good time to take the EAL pupils away because they'll get their own story in Teddy Talk, so it is a still story time session. So that's quite a good way of getting it timetabled in because we appreciate it can be quite hard in a busy nursery to find the time to take these pupils out. So that can be a good way of doing it. So the pack, they're getting the same topic, say colours, 2 or 3 times a week to reinforce that learning. No more than 5 pupils in a group. Okay, they've got 6 in that one, so it's not representative, but any more than that is not manageable in terms of giving them the attention and the support that they need. And we have a little record sheet, which I'll show you a little bit further on, to record what you've done. Very simple. Okay, so there's a wee pack. Okay, so with the props, very important. So you've got a little sheet at the front. We recommend you laminate, and that has all the structures, the vocabulary that you need to use. It has suggested books, though you can pick any book it's along the theme. It doesn't really matter. Some flashcards. Printing obviously is sometimes a bit of an issue, but you can do 2. 2 would be better because for some of the games it's useful to have one laid out in front of them, and then others maybe that are hidden, but they still need the visual. So 2, so even if one in colour, one in black and white, and you can do matching and things with it. So 2 sets of flashcards, and then if appropriate, some props. Some of the topics don't lend themselves to props, but we would recommend, and they all go into a folder or a bag, and are kept in the nursery to be used. So that's the packs. And there's the record I talked about. So very simple. You put the topic, colours, for example, who was there, who was absent of the group, because the groups are listed at the top, and a very quick comment about how they got on, who was strong, who found it difficult, etc. Okay. So the Teddy Talk strategies that we identified that Alison used in the Teddy Talk session are also strategies, obviously, that can be used within play and within the nursery setting. So the pausing and waiting, the choice, etc. We would recommend you use these as much as possible within the nursery for these pupils. But not just for the pupils, I would say for all pupils in the nursery as well, especially those with lower levels of language. These strategies are also useful in there. So I've just got a couple of other things that we would sort of recommend you would think about when talking to EAL pupils in the nursery. So from the Words Up programme, copy and add words. Okay, so if they're making an attempt to use some vocabulary, car, you're building on that. Yes, it's a car, a big car, extending that vocabulary. So they're hearing new words to add on. Again, from Words Up, the playing and talking together. Okay, so playing next to an EL pupil, doing a little bit of modelling, maybe commenting on what you're doing, and there, as in the picture, he is building again on the vocabulary. So she's got Big Biscuit and he's building it and adding chocolate in there to play and play with them together. Okay. There's lots of games in the language and activities in the nursery that don't need that much language, and that can be really supportive for EAL pupils. As I said, it can be quite overwhelming sometimes. There's a lot, they can't be involved in role play, etc., because they don't have the language. Hide and seek, jigsaws, all good activities that support them. And when you're doing that, you're building on their language. Again, you could be doing modelling, talking through your activity. That's very useful for you learners. I'm going to put the red piece in there. Can you find another bit of dog? Let's put that in there. So you're giving them the language as you're playing alongside them. And just a little note at the end there about supporting their language. It can be very tempting with EAL pupils to resort to sort of pidgin English, get quote, completely reduce down your language so that you're down to just the basic words that they need. And we would really not recommend that. Speak in normal sentences. They need to hear the structures. But yes, if you think the pupil needs a little bit of a reduction in the language to help them to understand, certainly do that. So get your quote, please. Okay, so they'll still hear the key words, they'll still be able to understand, but they've got the structure. So further on, they're going to learn that language. Rather than a big long sentence, please go and get your coat and then take it and sit on the mat. Keep it nice and simple and reduce it, but not pidgin English. That's just a little aside. Okay, so again, just want to highlight a lot of the strategies that you as practitioners in the Early Learning Centre will be using anyway are suitable for EAL learners. And on the flip side, a lot of the strategies that we recommend for EAL learners are also good for other pupils in the nursery. Okay, so I said we'd look a little bit at technology. Technology is everywhere. It can be very beneficial, and I know that pupils often are using an awful lot of technology at home, but there are some really good resources out there and that can really enrich. So we're talking about enriching the learning with technology. Okay, so on our website, you will find our Teddy Talk Pack Padlet. So if I go to our website, I will show you where it is. Okay, so we'll go back to the home page. Okay, and again, we're looking at the Early Learning Childcare page. And if you scroll down, there is the A4 sheet I talked about supporting a new pupil. Keep going down, and then this is training, and then there's the induction pack, the Teddy Talk. We've got the two videos. We've got the video of Alison, the Spanish one that you've watched, and then there's also one in English. So if ever you want to do Teddy Talk, you can look at that demo and see how a session might run in your nursery. So here's the Padlet. You can open it up into full screen. It has all the information I've talked about today. It's got a little permission slip if you feel that you want to ask permission from the parents, and there's the record keeping sheet there. The demos are on there again. And then for each of the packs, we've got the front cover that was shown in the pack and the flashcards. They're there for you to print out. A suggestion of different stories that you might use to go along with that pack. But remember, you could pick any one you want. as long as it goes along with the theme, with the topic. And then these are the links to other online activities. So we've got stories. There's to some songs. You might want to include a song in it. And then some of them have games as well. So a little game that reinforces that vocabulary. So that's the same for every single pack there. And you see we've got packs on all the topics. They don't need to be done in this order. They were just done in an order that you feel that is appropriate for your pupils. So for example, if you're doing a little topic about toys, you might want to do the toys one. Okay, and there's lots and lots of them there to be made up and used. So if I go back to my slideshow. Okay, so on this slide, what I've done is I've taken out some sort of key resources from that Padlet. There's two stories here. There's one that's got a wee song and the one doesn't. And there's two games there that you could have a go of. The games to learn English, when you click on it, make sure you choose slow, not fast, and you can have a look, and then colours. So it gives you an option to choose the colours game. And then there's a couple of songs there that you can have a look. And these are all just reinforcing that vocabulary and mixing up a little bit. So maybe if you've done Teddy Talk for a little while and you think, oh, you know, they maybe need something a little bit different, you can throw in maybe an online story rather than reading the story yourself, or a song into that mix. So what I'd like you to do now is just to pause the video and go on to the slide and the previous one about that's got the Padlet. So go onto the website, have a look at the Padlet, explore it a little bit, search through, and then come back to this slide and have a look at these links, a couple of these links, just to see and give some examples of some of the activities we're recommending. You can take as long as you like, but I would really suggest that you at least look at one story, one game, and one song to see the kind of resources we're recommending, and then come back when you've explored them a bit. So have a look at the Padlet and this slide with some of the examples on it. Okay, hopefully you've got a good idea of, and you're more familiar with the Padlet, so you'll be able to use it in your nursery to find the resources. As I say, lots and lots of fantastic resources available online, but sometimes there's just too much, so that Padlet, we hope, condenses it down for those pupils and for other pupils, because obviously some of them could be used for them as well. Okay, home language. Really, really important, as we talked about, to encourage the parents to speak their home language at home. But we would also be encouraging you to explore their home language in the nursery as well. And this has many positives. It gives a little bit of confidence to the pupil. It makes a value to their language, so they don't think that their language is not valued or their culture is not valued. They say that the nursery is let me listen to things in my own language, etc. So really, it can be a really valuable resource, these ones, for pupils. So we've got an example here. So you could learn as a nursery, as a setting, you could learn a little bit of that pupil's language. Okay, you might have quite a few Polish children, so you could learn a little bit of Polish, and that's the example we've given there is head, shoulders, knees and toes, which the children might be familiar with anyway. And in Polish, so we can put it up. You don't need to speak Polish, and then you could all practice it together. And you will find that the EAL pupils absolutely love this. They love the fact that you're learning their language, and they can get quite excited. The other one to look at is Matchalingua, which has a lot of real life resources, so books, posters, etc., in various different languages. So you could even order some for the school, for the nursery, in different languages. And then YouTube has songs and stories in different languages. So I think this is 5 Little Speckled Frogs in Dari, which is a language that's spoken in Afghanistan. So again, they could learn that song in a different language, or even just to get the Afghan pupils to listen to it. And then the stories are very valuable, and we all know the power of stories, the power of non-fiction. So if you think about an EAL pupil who doesn't have very much English, they're missing out on the joy of stories. Okay, they're getting to listen to it in English, but because they don't understand it, they're seeing the pictures and they're getting some benefit from it. They're picking up English, but we know how beneficial it is to hear stories. So these are stories in their own language and they can be played to them so they're getting that pleasure and that educational value of listening to stories in their home language. We hope that they're getting them at home, but as we know, that doesn't always happen, and parents are not always reading to their children. So the nursery could play a role in letting them hear some stories. So like before, what I'd like you to do is to pause the video in a minute and go and have a look at these resources. So have a look at the YouTube video, have a look at the Matrilingus site, have a look at the song and the story, just so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. And take a few minutes or as long as you like to do that, and then come back. Okay. I hope you got a good chance to explore those resources. As I say, lots on YouTube, etc. So you can just Google. And quite nice if you're, for example, doing the Three Bears maybe as a little topic, or you're reading that to all the children, then you could find it quite often you can find these stories in other languages so that the EAL pupils are getting that experience. They're getting to hear the story as well alongside their friends. Okay, along the same lines, we've also got some examples of signs and flashcards. We talked about maybe putting a few up. This one, the book area, has got it in lots of different languages. So if you've got pupils of different languages, you can have them there. And this one is just, I think this is Pashto, if I'm not mistaken. And they've got the pronunciation, which is quite handy. Twinkle is very good for these kind of things. They have quite a lot of posters and signs in different languages that can be put up on the nursery wall. So again, please pause the video, pause the recording, have a wee look, follow these links. There's 2 links there at these resources that you might use in your nursery, and then come back. You are looking for something particular and you can't find it, please do contact one of us. And we're kind of we're building up these resources on our website, but we haven't got them on yet. So if you do find, or if you find something, we'll be happy to share it with us. That would be really good as well. Okay. We've added this slide in because obviously at the moment we've got quite a lot of Afghan refugees, we've got quite a lot of Ukrainian refugees, etc. So we thought it would be quite important to add in just a little bit about the pressures and the challenges. There's enough pressures and challenges for an EAL pupil who's not a refugee, but for the refugee families, quite a few more, and that can add to the pressure and to how well the pupil settles in the school, etc., and how the parents cope. So just be aware, they will have no or very little family support. So they might just be their core family and they don't have any grandparents or any of that extended family support. Their living situation might be temporary or so that they don't have that support network either. So they're just living maybe somewhere temporarily, waiting to move to somewhere else, which is very unsettling and it's a real pressure. The journeys, we don't know what kind of journey that they've had. It could be months, years, etc. So we need to be aware of that trauma as well. Often they're not maybe unsure about their legal status, etc. So that could be quite stressful for parents. The language barrier, which we've talked about a lot, can be very, very difficult for the parents, etc. And education, there may be gaps in education, if they're older children, or the education systems are different. A completely different culture, okay? So especially we're talking about, especially the refugees from Afghanistan, etc. Already talked about the school system being very different, the religion is very different, the food is very different. So, for your pupils, that's going to make a big difference. And they're coming into your nursery and trying to have snack, which is different from what they would eat at home. So just being aware of that. And obviously the major factor of trauma and loss of all these things, of culture, language, education. Okay. So we just want to be aware of that and think about that if you do have refugee families within your early learning and childcare setting. Okay, our website, which we've had a really good look at already. You've looked at various resources and things on there. So please bookmark that. Please go back to it whenever you need some resources, because everything is on there. If there's something that's not on there missing, please let us know, and we can add it. But that is our sort of go-to for early learning childcare settings to go to when they need something to do with EAL. Okay. Once you have stopped this recording, we would really appreciate it if you clicked on this link here. The picture is a link to what's called an exit ticket. So the exit ticket serves two purposes. One is feedback for us. So was this valuable? What would you like to see more of, etc. But also for yourself, a little bit of self-reflection of what you felt you've learnt today and what you will take away from that. So it's only a few questions, but if you could complete it when you're finished, that would be really good. The date is wrong, but it's just because we had one that wasn't recorded, but that's the correct one. So if you could do that at the end, that would be really good. Okay. Normally at the end of your training, we have questions, but obviously that's not appropriate here. But if you do need some support or you have some questions about pupils in your nursery or about Teddy Talk or anything that I've talked about today, please get in touch. So there's myself down the bottom, Jenny Gray, and then my colleague Alison Roy. Okay, so you can contact either of us if you've got any questions or you would like some further support. Okay. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that training. Thanks for listening.